Last week, Vice President Kamala Harris had the current president, two former Democratic presidents, and the grandsons of two others endorse her at the Democratic National Convention. By contrast, Donald Trump's only Republican living predecessor, George W. Bush, did not attend the RNC. And Trump's former vice president, Mike Pence, refused to endorse him for obvious reasons, which is, of course, that Trump supporters wanted to kill him. In fact, of his entire cabinet, nearly half have refused to tell America that they should vote for the guy. And then there are those Republicans who are courageous enough to tell millions of Americans why they were voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
Let me be clear to my Republican friends at home watching. If you vote for Kamala Harris in 2024, you're not a Democrat, you're a patriot.
Now here I am, behind a podium, advocating for a Democrat. And that's because I love my country more than my party.
The grand old party has been kidnapped by extremists and devolved into a cult. The cult of Donald Trump.
Whatever policies we disagree on pale in comparison with those fundamental matters of principle, of decency, and of fidelity to this nation.
Earlier today, USA Today reported that more than 200 Bush, McCain, and Romney alums endorsed Harris for president. The group called on more moderate and independent voters to take a brave stand once more and support Harris over Trump in the fall. Joining me now is Eugene Craig III, chair of Black Republicans for Trump, and Tim Miller, writer-at-large at The Bulwark and MSNBC political contributor. Thank you both for being here. Eugene, let me start with you. Why Black Republicans for Trump, and who's a member, if you want to spill some names?
Well, Black Republicans for Harris. And the thing is,
for Harris. Sorry.
You're
Harris.
good. You're good. And look, we're rolling out this week, and I'll tell you this, right? Donald Trump's unqualified to be president. At the end of his first term, he lost an election and led a rebellion against this country, and that should be an automatic disqualifier. Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, is probably the most qualified person to ever run for the office of President of the United States. And look, our thing is this. We Black Republicans, we got a couple simple goals. First and foremost, we will be the margin of victory. If this is going to be a close election, we're going to make sure that, hey, we're standing on the side of history, and that, if this becomes contested, that we're standing next to Vice President Harris. Secondly, we're rapid response. When it comes to these racist attacks that come from Donald Trump and some of these Black Republicans that stand by him and defend them, it's going to be people like me that call out people like Byron Donalds. And thirdly, look, when the Trumpers go after Black men, they're going to have to see me on the other side making the case for Vice President Harris, because at the end of the day, when it comes to our community, Vice President Harris pales in comparison to Donald Trump.
That's very succinctly and well said, Tim Miller. Just to go through some of the people that we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about very conservative people. Judge Michael Luttig was on like every Supreme Court shortlist since I've been paying attention to Supreme Court politics. Very conservative. Former Virginia Congresswoman Barbara Comstock, former Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, who we saw in that montage, Adam Kinzinger, who I got a chance to meet at the DNC, Joe Walsh, former Congressman, Denver Riggleman, who we've had on this show, Mike Pence, Olivia Troy, who worked for Mike Pence. You can go on. Rena Shah, Anna Navarro from The View. People know from The View, George W. Bush's former U.S. Treasurer, Rosario Marin. You can go on and on and on. And then I ask myself, why isn't every Republican on this list who calls themselves a Republican? Because Donald Trump is something else. Are you surprised by those who are not on this list? And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, look, it's a mixed bag, right, Joy? On the one hand, Donald Trump can't make this list, right? There's not a list of former Obama staffers for Trump out there, So on the one hand, it's a good thing. At that new list that came out today, the 200 that they released, one name really stood out to me. Jean Becker was George H.W. Bush's chief of staff for his entire post-presidency. And so I think that kind of says something. She wouldn't have put her name on that if it wasn't sort of a subtle reference to, I think that what her former boss thought about Donald Trump. And so that's good. The bad news is it does feel like there should be some bigger fish to fry here. And I wrote about this in the Bulwark today. There was not a single Trump cabinet official that went to the DNC. As you mentioned, about half of them have not endorsed him. That's good. But at least some percentage of them, you would think, would have the courage to come out and say clearly that Kamala Harris should be president. I mean, John Kelly called Donald Trump the most flawed human he ever met. So you think if on the one hand you have the most flawed human you ever met, and on the other hand you have literally anyone, you would be for literally anyone. And obviously Kamala Harris is better than literally anyone. And I thought her speech really, in a lot of ways, at least thematically, maybe not on issue by issue, appealed to a lot of these types of people. So I have been disappointed there aren't more big names. I'm hoping that the courage of Adam Kinzinger and Jeff Duncan and others spurs some of these other folks to get off the sidelines.
Yeah, I've been surprised, too. You know, some of the people that aren't on the list, like Jim Mattis, who's clearly very, he's called him unfit. He said he has no moral compass. He's accused him of degrading the American experiment. You think of people like that, I have to chalk it up to maybe them being military people and feeling like they shouldn't be political. I don't know, but it's clear that they're not in favor of him. Eugene, for you, are the policy differences, are they just washed over by Trump's unfitness, as you've described it? Because obviously, I mean, Michael Steele and I talk about this all the time. We just want to go back to arguing with each other about tax rates. We really, really genuinely disagree on almost everything. But we're on the same side of democracy. Is it that for you, more that Trump is unfit? Or are there places where Vice President Harris has won you over in some ways to her ideas?
Well, I'll say this, right? First and foremost, Donald Trump hasn't laid out any policies. And the thing is this, we went through 4 days of an RNC without a single succinct policy being laid out by anybody on that stage. When it comes to where Vice President Harris has won me over, look, I give Vice President Harris the points on criminal justice reform before Donald Trump even walked through the door. When it comes to the economy, Vice President Harris will have a stronger economic plan than Donald Trump does. When it comes to, just joy within the country, Donald Trump literally cast a dark cloud over this country. And the thing is this, right? I got elected vice chair of the Maryland Republican Party when Governor Hogan got elected governor in Maryland, and we saw 8 years of great economic prosperity under Governor Hogan. And the thing is this, I trust a Kamala Harris to bring that same economic prosperity to the country that we saw with Governor Hogan in the state of Maryland. And I don't think it's lost upon us that Governor Hogan was the one that responded on January 6th to help save the Capitol when Donald Trump did absolutely nothing.
And so, Tim, what you just described there sounds like split ticket voting could happen, because everyone is trying to sort of punditize and sort of predict what's going to happen in November. For Democrats, in order for Vice President Harris to get anything done, she's going to need control of one or both houses of Congress. Do you see, when you talk to your former friends or current friends that are still Republicans, that they're saying the party has to lose or that Trump has to lose?
Yeah, I mean, I think it breaks down. There's a little bit from every category, right? And, I certainly think that there are a lot of people, a lot of regular voters, frankly. If you're not obsessed with this stuff like us, Joy, and you are now voting for a Democrat for the third time because you hate Donald Trump that much, a lot of those people out there in the world that voted for Mitt Romney in 2012 have just functionally become Democrats. Maybe they don't want to say it because it's not part of their identity, but they've been voting for Democrats. You see this across the board if you just look at the suburbs of basically any major city, tons of those people.